Every God of War had power fantasy when it comes to Kratos, meaning that you go into fights and you feel really strong. You feel powerful, you feel like you can take them on, you can feel like you can take anything on, no matter how small, no matter how big, it's like Kratos can handle it. So for this game, even though we were changing pretty much everything about the combat, we wanted to make sure that Kratos still felt like he was a powerhouse.
The two things that we had talked about early on were like, one, we don't want to make an open world game. Two, we don't want to just mimic Dark Souls. As much as we like that game, there is kind of this interesting loop inside of it that we wanted to capture. That's when we really, I think, started embracing the fact that not all of God of War just has to be charge in, hit, and then sort of wake up after everything's over, right? We just didn't have that strategic element, that cerebral engagement. And all of the pieces that we put together throughout development put the player in a position that they have to think as they're fighting.
For this game, he's got a new weapon, his Leviathan axe, and with this weapon we wanted to be a little bit more tactical, still feel powerful at the end of the day, but have a little bit more decision-making and a little bit more deliberate actions on the player.
We created scenarios in which, hey, it's advantageous to really experiment with this. And we've noticed that once people start seeing that, oh, I'm gonna try that one now, right? Because we give you a lot.
We want to make sure that, hey, when you win this fight, did you win it slightly different than this other player won the fight? Maybe you kicked him into a wall, stunned him, and grabbed him. Maybe you tripped him and then slammed your axe on top of him to split him in half. There's multiple ways to handle enemies this game.
But I love the kind of trick shot stuff with the axe. So like throwing and tripping the character and then repositioning myself to put another character between me and the axe, recalling the axe and taking the character from the ground, popping him up, hitting another character in that line from behind, grabbing and then comboing that, launching him up, and then throwing a runic attack.
Once you throw your axe, we didn't want Kratos to be useless. We wanted to make sure that he still had a moveset, so he's got a shield that can expand on command now. A lot of his bare hand attacks uses that to get more damage. With this thing, he can stun much easier, much faster than the axe itself.
Well, Kratos can throw the axe. He has ranged abilities, right? If you're blocking, you have to block. But the addition of Atreus means I can block and actually fire arrows. So I can strategize that I can open somebody up while maintaining some safety and then quickly get in while they're opened up and then follow that up with something. So it gives you a really interesting sense that I can both have an aggressive stance and a defensive stance at the same time. God of War was, the boat deck, right? On the Hydra ship, one section, bam, you already understand kind of all of the base combat stuff, and then we incorporate a little bit of magic later. So this was far more ambitious, and I think honestly, the audiences are more adept at games. They've played a lot more games. The game industry has progressed and matured, so people are looking for an inherently greater depth to the games that they're playing.
Executing a no-cut camera. I thought it was impossible when I read the script. I thought it was impossible when I looked at our equipment. I thought it was impossible when I looked at the reality of our production pipelines. But it's possible. It's just incredibly challenging. Hi, I'm Dwayne Arazi, Director of Photography on God of War, and this is how we built a cinematic experience on God of War in a single shot. Every cinematic style delivers a story in its own way. It imparts a kind of subconscious flavor to how you experience the overall storyline. When you read a script, the way things are mostly delivered is what's called the A-B shot. So you shoot this guy, you shoot that guy, you shoot this guy, you shoot that guy. And when you see a really complex narrative dialogue delivered without cuts, that doesn't look like the camera's swinging back and forth and actually everything's just flowing organic, it's incredibly gratifying.
It does not attack.
When you combine a sense of documentary with a camera that doesn't cut, you get a very empathetic point of view to the character. It's such an immersive way to experience the hero's journey. I don't think the player would have experienced anything like this before.
What are we hunting?
You are hunting deer.
So I was running around with a camera and we had to shoot it in one take perfectly. The actors had to deliver their performance perfectly, their dialogue perfectly, move perfectly, hit their marks perfectly. I had to hit my marks perfectly. No errors. That was on one side. Then on the other side was, okay, now we have a single shot camera for our cinematics. How do we get that to blend seamlessly in and out of the actual gameplay? It was a Herculean effort in communication. You had a bunch of technical teams, visual teams, and cinematic teams having to work perfectly together to know exactly who's doing what and when to make sure the player will do exactly the right thing. the scene from our 2016 E3 demo where Kratos walks up to his son right after he shot the deer. It was a very somber moment, juxtaposed with a lot of combat, so we wanted to carry into that shot very smoothly to land that emotion. We worked with the level designers and with our camera designers and with the cinematic team. The experience was seamless. We walked into this open environment and suddenly Kratos walks into this beautiful, evocative cinematic. And I think that's when I started feeling that we can do this, we can nail this. It was visually climbing Mount Everest, and seeing it succeed was incredibly rewarding.
This way.
Cut.
Just tell me when to shoot.
Making sure that Atreus wasn't a pain in your ass was a big part of this game.
Atreus needed to have some sort of ability or something he brought to the table that was different from Kratos. His ability to understand the language, right? In our world, the writing of the runes and the speaking of the runes are like the ignition for magic. Atreus' ability to understand this stuff allows him to have magical abilities that Kratos can't have.
The giants used to gather here to trade with the gods a long time ago.
The simplicity of the controls was imperative.
Should I fire?
Wait for my mark.
We did not want to be giving commands or have complex orders or anything like that. He is able to autonomously divide the battlefield just a little bit, so he's able to take attention, if you will, aggro in some games it's called, away from enemies. So if you have a large pack of enemies, you know, firing the arrows will get their attention.
We had to design like a suite of moves for him that he could do that could help melee with the bow and trip enemies and keep them at bay. You know, he's a little guy, so he can jump on an enemy and grab them from time to time. We didn't want people micromanaging the son. Again, we didn't want people to think of him as any kind of hindrance, anything that they really had to worry about. You can use him to your heart's content, whatever you would like to do, but if you don't do anything, he'll still do a lot of things.
There are certain circumstances that there are enemies that say, I'm going to target him. But if he gets into trouble, he's able to get himself out of trouble most of the time.
When you're in a fight with Atreus, it's like you definitely feel his presence. He feels like he's there with you every step of the way. You wanted to make sure that he always felt like somebody that was helping Kratos and benefiting you, and you never want to be without him. This God of War game is definitely a fresh start for the team. Everything about this game has been new from the get-go. So we got, you know, a new camera perspective, we got a new narrative, we got Atreus, a new mythology, and we knew we had to change the weapon as well. We had to bring something new to the table.
The blades are extremely iconic. Everybody expects this, everybody knows this. There's not a lot you can do new with it without going super extreme, right? So to make a nice big change, I think will have a greater weight, a greater impact.
Corey, with his original pitch for the new God of War game, he always pictured him with this axe. That's really the only note we had is, okay, he's gonna have an axe. And basically with that, we had to decide, well, what can be special about this axe? And as we previewed animations and did a lot of tests, like there was always this animation of Kratos throwing the axe that seemed like it would be cool, but it'd be like, well, he's gonna throw his weapon away. Like, what use is that gonna be? It's just gonna be gone. You're gonna have to go pick it up. Until, you know, one of our designers, Vincent Napoli, came up with the idea, well, what if he called it back? So we prototyped that, we had him throw the axe out, you know, call it back, and immediately kind of worked very well with the camera perspective, how to deal with enemies, pinpointing targets on them, tripping them again, aiming for the leg. So all the ideas kind of started to spearhead themselves right after that decision was made.
That axe you got to handle her special.
Brock and Sindri, the two dwarven blacksmiths that you meet throughout the game, are able to modify the axe, sort of size of the axe head as well as the handles. Each of these sort of additions adds access to different skills, different moves.
Early on when we first started designing, we almost look at it as a car that you're upgrading it. So all the parts come out and you can swap and add on different things, the specials.
Traditionally, in the previous games, these would be like your L1 specials, right? Like the special moves that you're able to do, you're able to actually mix and match. So you can say, I really like this move, I want to put that move in. As you collect different ones, you can say, I really like this one, this is the only one I want to use. Or, ooh, no, now I'm going to swap this out.
So one attack might just be a giant frost wave that doesn't do a lot of damage, but it does slow them down and make them easier to fight. Another one might have Kratos just spinning rapidly with his axe, very close range, multi-hit, high damage, depending on if you like being up close to enemies or far range. Basically, there's a runic attack for you.
I originally came onto God of War because the animators for the game actually found me on YouTube. That kind of went viral, and then the animators saw it, and then they called me up directly. My name's Eric Jacobus. I did the combat motion capture for Kratos in the new God of War. And this is how you fight like Kratos. I would describe Kratos' fighting style as one that's very direct, straightforward, and never stopping. We would never retreat in the game. He's the God of War. You'd never retreat as the God of War. You're always going to move forward. Every single move that I did had to have that full rage. When the team asked me to audition, instead of coming down to LA and auditioning in front of a committee, why don't I just go in my garage and do what I've been doing in these fighting games and just do a Kratos move list? I made a little move list for Kratos where I do empty-handed combinations and I did the axe moves, Superman punches, Sparta kicks. We did a little bit of drop kicking. I had this training dummy that I beat up with the axe. It was kind of funny, you know? I put everything I had into it, you know, and I sent it over to them. Next thing I knew, they called me in to do a day of shooting.
Take two, Mark.
Motion capture plays such an important role because it allows the animators so much more movement to work with. When you capture the right movement, you don't have to pull the camera back into God's eye view anymore. You can bring the camera in. As a gamer, when you're playing a game and you're that close to the main character, you suspend disbelief so much more quickly when the character moves like a human. The body's a series of pulleys. You can't really fake it at a certain point, especially when it's so close to the camera. Because this is one of the coolest jobs a stuntman could ever ask for. I mean, coming in and playing the God of War himself, you know, and just doing axe moves all day, and yeah, it's exhausting, sure, it's 8 hours of work, but, you know, a stuntman's body is built for this stuff. We really thrive when we're able to do full body moves like this. I would say that this sort of is the stuntman's dream.
Kratos has always been sort of a one-dimensional character. You know, he's gone to such a dark, dark place. And trying to give a character like that the right amount of motivation to want to change and try to do something different, I think Atreus is such a key component to that. And we wanted to give Kratos another dimension, or show the fans and for us ourselves, like dive into another side of what this character could be.
Look, tracks, they're fresh. This one.
Hi, I'm Jeet Shroff. I'm the gameplay engineering lead on God of War, and this is how we brought Atreus to life.
No! You are not ready!
You have a character like Kratos who really doesn't need any help in combat.
Wait here. I will handle this.
And so that was one of the biggest challenges of trying to figure out how could Atreus be that supporting character, but not take the sort of focus off Kratos. Playtest feedback, it's kind of like taking your kid, you know, raising your child, sending him to school and then getting a D. There's been ups and downs, there's been, oh, you know, us feeling really good about something and then the feedback is like, you didn't get that at all. The playtests have been great in helping us along the way, you know, watching those combat scores go up, watching people start to really go like, you know, Atreus in combat is a plus, Atreus in problem solving, puzzle solving is a plus. The playtests have really helped us find our way through that. I think the big aha moment was having the player decide when and how to use Atreus to get through these sort of problems that we were placing in front of the player in those combat scenarios.
Here's a chance. Show me already.
Yes, sir!
Now that we have a button that's dedicated to Atreus on the pad that the player can command. Putting the right stuff on that button got us kind of beyond the point of feeling like Atreus is in the way. Because now, the player can command Atreus to do certain things that are very unique and special, like stunning characters, or like getting past a specific type of puzzle, and use him in a sort of balanced approach with what Kratos' sort of arsenal is. The way I like to talk about this is more of the extension of Kratos. It's kind of like another weapon that you can use on your own, as you decide, or as you start to upgrade Atreus, you get to integrate him into your combat style the way you want.
No, boy! Where must we go?
To a realm beyond your own.
Norse myth provided that sense of a lived-in world. It got us away from the pristine feeling of Greek mythology and more of this feeling of like living moment to moment in this very unforgiving, very harsh, very isolated world that is very much tactile and easy to relate to.
More Draugr.
And then when I started reading more about the mythology, the interesting aspects were most of it was about how we interact, these sort of human lessons. Absolutely living every single moment of life like the world is going to end. Because to them, it is.
Can you kill something that big?
My method into any project is really through the characters. So this game, perhaps more than any other in the franchise, it has really well-developed characters. I mean, it's really a well-written story. And that was my starting point. And just writing a piece of music that could capture the spirit of a character without even knowing like where it would go in the game. Just, how does this make you feel? Does this piece of music capture the spirit of Kratos? I wanted to write something that represented age, wisdom, power, masculinity. So I wrote this tune. It was like a slow march, bum, 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 bum. I didn't know how to start it. Finally, I was like, I don't know, maybe the first 3 notes I could do something with. So I was like, bum, bum, bum. And I just kind of stuck that on the beginning, almost as an afterthought. So I sent it to Sony and Corey, and they love it. And especially the beginning. They're like, the 3 notes in the beginning. And I was like, what 3? Oh, that thing? It is just the first 3 notes of the tune, just kind of on a loop. So it just feels very stern. The way that like a stern father would say to his son over and over and over again, the same thing. I think there's an element of that in the Kratos theme. The fact that I could distill down to those 3 notes, it meant that if he walks into a scene or he takes the upper hand, if he does anything, bum, 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 Kratos he's here. He's taking command, Even at E3, when he steps out of the shadows.
I am hungry.
It's like Pavlovian. You just associate that with him. And it's such a simple little thing, but it's a great trick. As the game develops, I really start to mess with it. This theme that could be masculine and stern and powerful and big and brassy could also be vulnerable and emotional, and that hearing those notes triggers your memories of all the other times you've heard it. And my hope is that it guides you, along with the other 3 or 4 themes that I use as much, if not more, that it guides you through the experience of the game. A couple of our characters, we really learn some exciting things about them, to say the least. And their themes start off one way and evolve into a totally different thing. So that's why thematic writing for me is really useful. And I think more than in any other game I've ever scored, I got to really lean into threading all these different themes throughout the cinematics and throughout the gameplay. And it was a really special experience.
Kratos has undergone a lot of change, so that when he ends God of War 3 and is transitioning into this one. There's a period of time where he's kind of wandering the earth alone, right? And he believes being alone is probably better. He thought his interactions with people were the problem. The reality is, like, he has internal problems and he needs to face those. He needs to deal with them. In my mind, he has hit rock bottom emotionally. He is in a time when the gods and the monsters are wandering the earth, but he's also in this headspace where he's open, even subconsciously more open to change. His ways in the Greek era were, it's your fault. I did something bad, it's your fault, or it's your fault, or it's your fault. It's never his fault. He's not ready to deal with any of these things. And I think as he's arrived in Scandinavia, he's open to that, he just doesn't know how to do it.
Feed us.
And that's the importance of having Atreus involved in all of this. Atreus is the hand that pulls humanity out of his sort of dark heart, right? This thing that he stamped down. Because when he does do it, when he can successfully do it, it feels right, it feels earned, and it feels like you have accomplished something. It's so much more satisfying to take somebody that has fallen so far and actually give them some redemption, right? He's not gonna reach the end of the game and ride the white horse and save everyone. He is not on the heroic journey. He is on the journey of at least regaining a small fraction of his humanity.
Find your way home. You are free.
Hello everyone, it is April 20th, all over the world, and everybody's able to pick up God of War today, and I just want to say, everybody here at Santa Monica is so excited about everybody getting a chance to play the game. We have worked a really long time. Everybody's put a tremendous amount of themselves into this game, and we cannot wait for you to experience this. We are very excited to hear how you experienced it, to hear your thoughts after you finish the game. Thank you.
PlayStation